Hello, AVAIYA family. I'm Andy Anderson. My partner Ike Allen and I are teachers, mentors, and the co-owners of AVAIYA University. AVAIYA is the creator of over 1,000 books, films, courses, teachings, and other supportive resources. Thank you so much for joining us. Our fellow teacher, Dr. Debi Silber, is back with us today to talk about how an unhealed betrayal is impacting your health, work, and relationships. Debi is the founder of the PBT Institute, that's the Post-Betrayal Transformation Institute, and is a holistic psychologist, a health, mindset, and personal development expert, and best-selling author. In her recent PhD study on how we experience betrayal, made 3 groundbreaking discoveries that changes how long it takes us to heal. She's dedicated to helping people move past their betrayals, as well as any other blocks preventing them from the health, work, relationships, confidence, and happiness that they most want. Welcome back to AVAIYA, Debi.
Oh, thank you so much. I just love chatting with you. I love all you do for all of your, all of your amazing participants.
Well, thank you. We love having you. We love having you contribute, and I'm so glad that we could talk with you about this topic because I know it's near and dear to your heart. You've been doing a lot of work around it for years. So let's talk about betrayal, right? Why does betrayal hurt so much? Why does it, and how does it impact us? What different ways does it impact us in our lives?
It impacts us on every level, physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and that's why it needs to be healed on every level. And, the reason why it hurts so much is, think about it. This was the person, or these were the people we trusted the most. So when the person or people we trusted the most proves untrustworthy, who do we trust? And it's such a shock to the body, to the mind, to the heart. It shatters everything we've known to be real and true. It shatters our worldview, all of it. I mean, the good news is you can heal from all of it, but because of the nature of how personal it feels is really why it causes the damage that it does.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And I mentioned a bit ago when I was reading a little bit about your work that the study that you did made 3 important discoveries. So could you talk about what those discoveries are?
Yeah, sure. Well, the first one was, originally I was studying betrayal and post-traumatic growth. And for those who aren't familiar, post-traumatic growth is, if you can imagine, kind of an upside of trauma, how any trauma, death of a loved one, disease, natural disaster, whatever it is, leaves you with a new awareness, insight, perspective that you didn't have. But I had been through death of a loved one. I'd been through disease. And I'm like, no, this feels very different for me. I didn't want to assume it was the same for all my study participants. So I asked them, if you've been through other traumas besides betrayal, does it feel different for you? Unanimously, they said, oh my gosh, it's so different. And here's why. Because it feels so intentional, we take it so personally. So the entire self is shattered and has to be rebuilt. Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust. Like when you lose someone you love, you grieve, you're sad, you mourn the loss. You don't question your ability to trust. You don't question your sanity. You may not feel rejected. So this type of healing didn't quite qualify as post-traumatic growth. It's like, yeah, you need to rebuild your life, but you also need to rebuild yourself. So I coined a new term, post-betrayal transformation. That's the complete and total rebuild of your life and yourself after an experience with betrayal. That was the first discovery.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, we'll dive into that in a minute. Why don't you tell us about the other discoveries and then we'll go back to that.
Sure. The second one, this was where we learned that there's actually a collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal. It's known as post-betrayal syndrome. We must have had easily 60, 70,000 people take our post-betrayal syndrome quiz to see to what extent they're struggling. And a few things about that, the first thing is we've all been taught time heals all wounds. Well, I have the proof that when it comes to betrayal, that's not true. Because there's a question on the quiz that says, is there anything else you'd like to share? And people write things like, my betrayal happened 40 years ago, and I can still feel the hate. My betrayal happened 35 years ago. I'm unwilling to trust. So we know for sure that healing from betrayal requires a very specific protocol. You cannot count on time to heal it. It doesn't work. But there are these collection of symptoms, and I'm happy to share some.
That'd be great.
Sure. So, because that would be really weird and awkward if you said no.
I wouldn't say no.
Okay. So now imagine 60, 70,000 people, men, women, just about every country is represented. 78% constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. 80% are hypervigilant, 94% deal with painful triggers. The most common physical symptoms: 71% have low energy, 68% have sleep issues, 63% have extreme fatigue. Your adrenals have tanked. That's what that is. 47% have weight changes. In the beginning, maybe you can't hold food down. Later on, you're using food for comfort. 45% have digestive issues, and that's anything from Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, constipation, diarrhea. The most common mental symptoms: 78% are overwhelmed, 70% are walking around in a state of disbelief, 68% can't focus, 64% are in shock, 62% can't concentrate. You still have to work, raise your kids. That's not even the emotional ones. Emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness. 83% are really angry. 82% feel hurt. 80% have anxiety. 79% are stressed, just a few more. 84% have an inability to trust. 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how.
That's wild, right? To hear those numbers, that's just crazy.
And you know what's crazy? Even crazier about that? You didn't hear me say one number, 20%, 30%.
No.
What's even crazier, the part that really gets me is these numbers aren't necessarily from a recent betrayal. These can be from something that happened decades ago. So now imagine your girlfriend, your boyfriend from high school, your parent, that uncle, who, whatever, somebody did something, said something, right? They may not even know, care, or even remember. And here we are walking around with anxiety, with gut issues, with hypervigilance from something that happened decades ago. That's not fair to us.
Yeah. I was just about to ask you too, right? Like, what constitutes a betrayal? Because I think some people might immediately think, right, a partner has cheated on a partner or something like that, but there's a lot of different, right, types of betrayal. Any light you can shed on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I define it as the breaking of a spoken or unspoken rule, and every relationship has them. Think about it. We had a rule. I was going to show up. We were going to have a conversation. If I didn't, I would have betrayed you. Now, you know, you may have been annoyed. It wouldn't break you, right? I mean, we're never broken, Ben. You know what I mean? But the way it works is the more we depend on someone, the more we trust them, the deeper the betrayal. So a child who's completely dependent on their parent, that's going to have a different impact than, let's say, your coworker taking credit for your idea, your best friend sharing your secret. But it has so many faces. Someone in a position of authority. The rule is, the understanding is, listen to me and I'll take care of you. And then they don't. That's a betrayal. Siblings, mom and dad get older and we'll take care of them. That time comes, they're not around. That's a betrayal. It could be a business relationship. You know, here are the funds for the company, and all of a sudden, where they go, right? So it's anything where there's a breaking of those spoken or unspoken rules.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you. I appreciate you shedding light on like what other things that could be deemed that for people. Did you do all three discoveries? Because I can't remember.
Yes. And I didn't even get to the third. The third was the most, for me, the most mind-blowing. I mean, yeah. And I didn't expect any of these discoveries to show up. I was just personally looking to heal. I mean, that was it. I was like, a book isn't going to get me out of this jam. I need a whole PhD in it. But I do remember going through the program saying, if I can heal from this, I'm taking everybody with me. I mean, that's just it. That was the only kind of knowing I had. When the third discovery showed up, this for me lit me up. I mean, because what we learned was, while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and so many people do, if we're going to fully heal, and when I say fully heal, I mean symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome to that whole healed state of post-betrayal transformation, we're going to go through 5 proven, predictable stages. We even know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every stage, and we know what it takes to move from one stage to the next. Healing is entirely predictable. And I'm happy to share the stages if you'd like.
Let's hear them.
Okay. And here's the thing with the stages too. You don't leave out a stage. The order doesn't change, but it's not this smooth, graceful, linear thing either. It's more like this. You know, you got to forward, back, but you do outgrow a stage as you grow into the next one. So it's all on trust again. It's what we teach within the Institute, but here is like a distilled version. Stage one is like a setup stage. And if you can imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, what I saw with every study participant, me too, was this real heavy lean on the physical and the mental, thinking and doing, and kind of neglecting and ignoring the emotional and the spiritual, feeling and being. That's not to say if you are just busy, you'll be betrayed, but it was the profile that I saw. But if a table only has 2 legs, easier for that table to topple over. Well, that's us. Stage 2, shock, trauma, D-Day, discovery day. And it's the breakdown of the body, the mind, and the worldview. Right here, you've ignited your stress response. You are headed for every single stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. Your mind is in a complete state of chaos and overwhelm. You cannot wrap your mind around what you just learned. Makes no sense. And your worldview has just been completely shattered. That's your mental model. It's the rules that govern you that prevent chaos. This is how life works. Don't trust that person, trust this person. You know, this is how what you do. And in one earth-shattering moment or series of moments, every rule you've ever known to be real and true is no longer. The bottom really has bottomed out on you, and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. So this is terrifying. But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You grab hold of anything to stay safe and stay alive. And that's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. It's the most practical out of all of the stages. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How do I survive this? Where do I go? Who can I trust? Who can I talk to? How do I feed my kids? Here's the trap, though. This is by far the most common place to get stuck. And when I say that, I'm talking about you could stay stuck here for a lifetime. And here's why. Once you've figured out how to survive your experience, because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma of where you just came from, we think it's good. We're like, okay, all right, I got this. And because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we don't know there's a stage 4 or stage 5. Transformation doesn't even begin until stage 4. But because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we kind of plant roots here. We're not supposed to, but we don't know that. And then 4 things happen. The first thing is we start getting all these small self benefits from being here. You know, think about it. You get your story, and it's a powerful one. You get to be right. You get someone to blame. You get a target for your anger. You get sympathy from everyone you tell your story to. You get all kinds of benefits. So you plant deeper roots. You're not supposed to, but you don't know that. And now that you're here longer than you should be, the mind starts doing things like, well, maybe you deserved it. Maybe you're not all that great. Maybe this, maybe that. So you plant deeper roots. Now, because these are the thoughts you're thinking, well, this is the energy you're putting out. And like energy attracts like energy. So now you start calling situations and circumstances and relationships towards you to confirm, yep, this is as good as it's getting. That's it. And the misery loves company crowd, whoo, they come around now too. It gets worse, they'll get you out of here. Because it feels so bad, but we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we start resigning ourselves. We're like, this stinks, but I better find a way to get through this. So now on top of everything else, we start using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, whatever, keeping busy, reckless behavior to numb, avoid, and distract ourselves from this painful place. So now think about this, Andy. You do this for a day, a week, a month, to habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years. And I can see someone 20 years out and say, that emotional eating you're doing, that drinking, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they would look at me like I have 2 heads. And they'd be like, well, you know, what are you talking about? All they did was put themselves in stage 3 and stay there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I'm telling you. When I wrote Trust Again has the 5 stages in it, but everybody was stuck in stage 3. So From Hardened to Healed is just for those stage 3 people, because you've been through the worst of it already. Why are you stopping, in that stage 3? You owe it to yourself to that transformation that's waiting in stage 4 and stage 5. Want me to finish with the stages?
Yes, great.
Okay.